Thank you for joining us today on this edition of Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Amid growing speculation that Washington may be looking to scrap the KoreaUS FTA, the U.S. Trade Representative expressed hope of reaching an agreement on a revised trade pact with Korea. President Moon Jae-in and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin met today to discuss bilateral economic cooperation, as well as issues surrounding North Korea and its latest nuclear test. These stories and more coming right up. We start with the latest on the Korea-US FTA, which U.S. President Donald Trump has called unfair and job-killing and just plain horrible. Now, his feelings are well known, but reports that came out over the weekend brought the issue back into the spotlight. Reports said although Trump may be considering a withdrawal, America's top trade official is optimistic that the two sides can still reach a compromise. Our Kim Hae-sung starts us off.
The Trump administration's point man on trade, Robert Lighthizer, is looking to cool speculation President Trump is close to terminating the South Korea-U.S. free trade agreement. Speaking in Mexico City on Tuesday, Lighthizer said Washington is looking to negotiate some changes to the 5-year-old pact after concluding meetings on NAFTA with its Mexican and Canadian counterparts. The U.S. Trade Representative added the Trump administration would like to iron out differences and hopes for a successful discussion with South Korean representatives. President Trump has repeatedly slammed the deal as unfair to American workers. He even reportedly called for a possible termination last weekend, citing that since the FTA has been in force, the U.S. trade deficit in goods with South Korea has doubled from $13 billion to over $27 billion in 2016. But as with other major trading partners, the U.S. enjoys a significant surplus in services trade with South Korea, which approached near $11 billion last year. According to the Washington Post, senior White House officials, including National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster and Defense Secretary James Mattis, are against a pullout. They're urging Trump to hold more discussions with Seoul, particularly at a time of heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula. American businesses and trade groups have also expressed concerns over the possibility of President Trump scrapping the deal. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce said it opposes withdrawal in the strongest possible terms, saying the move would not create a single American job, but cost many. The Seoul-based Korea Institute for International Economic Policy released a study this week that estimated the U.S. has more to lose if it pulls out. It said that without the deal, South Korea's trade surplus with the U.S. would have been $260 million more than now due to higher tariffs. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
For much of Cold War, Korea's relations with Russia had been icy at best. But that all changed with the fall of the Soviet Union. With President Moon Jae-in meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin today, our Elliot Kim has more on the current state of diplomatic ties and trade between the two countries.
Up until 3 decades ago, Korea and the Soviet Union had a hostile relationship due to its support of China and North Korea in the Korean War. But in 1991, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Korea and the newly created Russian Federation re-established diplomatic ties. Since then, it's been a profitable arrangement for both parties. Bilateral trade has increased 135-fold over 22 years, from $190 million in 1992 to $25.8 billion in 2014. But Russia has fallen on hard times in recent years, dipping into a recession that started in 2014 and lasted until March of this year. As a result, Russia fell down the ladder to become Korea's 13th largest trading partner in 2015, according to data from Michigan State University's International Business Center. Russia had previously been one of Seoul's top 10 trade partners as recently as 2013. Despite the setback, both countries have high hopes for increased trade. With the Putin-led government looking to make inroads into the Asia-Pacific region, Russia's abundant natural resources look like the ideal pairing for Korea's booming manufacturing industry. The country already has a free trade agreement in place with Vietnam and is looking to expand that to the ASEAN bloc of nations. While Korea has suspended work on the transcontinental freight railway agreed upon in 2013 by Russia, North Korea, and South Korea, both governments are searching for new ways to expand bilateral trade, including resuming work on that railroad and opening new shipping routes in the Arctic. With Russia's economy back on the rise and Korea looking to provide its own economy with steady growth, a new economic map could be drawn as Korea looks to expand trade with Eurasian countries. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
So as we just heard, Presidents Moon and Putin met in Vladivostok today to discuss various issues regarding the two countries as well as North Korea. Now, Moon will also be attending the Eastern Economic Forum on Thursday as part of his two-day trip. To tell us more about the president's visit to Russia and the impact it may have on the local economy, Professor Song Se-ryun from Kyung University joins us in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
All right, so how significant is President Moon's trip to Russia this time around?
Well, Russia is always important. They hold the Security Council vote, so no matter what, they will be important. But focusing on this Russian Far East, centered around Vladivostok, this area is a very fascinating area. It has been for two reasons. One, economic and political, and also they are somewhat interrelated. Economically, that area is oil-rich, and it's a gateway to the continent. And because of the Far East region having a lot of economic miracles that we have seen, of course, Korea, Japan, and China included, so that has been always an interesting area to work with. And politically, though, it's more fascinating for Korea because Russia has a relationship with both North Korea and South Korea.
Right.
So if we can make an economic collaboration between the three countries, then not only economically it is a boon, but also as an impact of getting the North Korea out of their doldrum and isolation into a kind of fold into a global economy, which is the fastest road, we think, to the peace. So I think that on that basis, President Moon is focusing on those two areas.
All right. Now, previous administrations have adopted the so-called Northern Policy, but failed to see any significant results. So first, can you give us a rundown of what this Northern Policy is and also what kind of limitations that it faced?
Northern Policy that we have seen kind of dates back to all the way to Rotaeu. Because they looked to the north and saw the same kind of possibilities, economic possibilities, and also they're looking towards Russia to play a role between the north and south tensions. So in that basis, each president always had some sort of, with different names, a northern-bound policies. Some are more politically motivated, some are more economically motivated. For example, previous President Park Geun-hye was more focused on the logistics side, and before that, Lee Myung-bak was more focused on the energy aspect of it.
Okay.
No matter what the focus has been, there's always a focus on looking at the economic side and how to bring out the political benefits so that it'll be economically a boon, but also at the same time contribute to the peace.
And now last month, the Moon administration proposed its new Northern Policy, which seeks to create a belt of economic and political cooperation with northern states, including North Korea. So tell us more about his new plan and how realistic is it?
Well, we have read kind of similar stories before, but I guess a renewed vigor. There are some proposals under that policy. First of all, strengthening Eurasian cooperation, promoting new northern policy as a kind of a continental strategy for Korea. And there has been some track record of modicum of success. For example, Najin Hasan logistics business that has kind of hit the skid because of the North Korea situation, but it's still alive. We can link all those railways so they can go all the way to different parts of the continent.
Right.
But also there is a EAEU, which is the alliance of the Russian Federation, former Russian Federation countries. So if we can conceive a free trade agreement with those countries, probably there will be a lot of opportunities coming out of there. But also there are kind of a new development which has been going on, which is, for example, China's One Belt, One Road project, which kind of weaves through more than 60 countries, and probably budget will exceed about $5 trillion.
Wow.
So those kind of infrastructure projects can attract or create a lot of different jobs and different projects. So in that sense, there are economic opportunities abound.
Now, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there are discussions ongoing for the KoreaEU FTA amid uncertainties surrounding the KoreaUS FTA as well as China-Korea relations over that. So tell us some more about this.
Well, that's always been a problem because these economic opportunities are there, but as I mentioned, North Korea has been always a spoiler. But not only the North Korea, our relationship with the China at this point is a very thorny one, and North Korea's provocation has made it a lot tougher. So paradoxically, the relationship with Russia at this point is more highlighted because it can become a breakthrough point where we are logjammed or straitjacketed between China and U.S. relationship and also North Korea's provocation. But if Russia, with this kind of economic collaboration as a background and can play the role, then probably they can kind of unlock some of the logjam point. But at least our expectation is that. I think that Russia is welcoming that idea in principle, but since Russia is also having difficulties with the U.S. relationship, it's
with
a
Trump.
very interesting point to see.
All right. Well, Korean companies are hoping that this summit would open up new business opportunities. Now, what are some of the areas or sectors that would benefit the most from expanded economic cooperation between Korea and Russia?
Right. The Russian Far East has always been rich in energy resources, natural gas, petroleum products. So I think that naturally, energy-related companies will be pretty excited about that. But not only that, if we have a booming energy industries and exports, probably the transportation, shipping, and related to that, shipbuilding even, would be a boon. So right now, the Korean shipbuilding industry is very depressed at this point, so that could be a turnaround point. Automobile parts and cars, that has always been a kind of a strong point for Korean companies in that region. So with economic opportunities going in kind of a northbound, probably that will follow with different kinds of opportunities. Now, I think that because we talked about the Najin Hasan, the logistics part is always a fascinating one if you can link all those things together. So logistics is business and transportation service per se, but equipment that is involved in taking the shape of that infrastructure, but also providing the services. Probably there will be a lot of opportunities that a lot of Korean companies could be excited about.
So in order for the Moon government's new northern policy to bear some fruit this time, what needs to be done?
I think the same kind of the concerns that we had probably applies here, which is that despite the economic opportunities that we see, North Korea has always played the spoiler role. So if we're not gonna repeat that kind of mistake or some kind of downturn in expectation, probably we'll have to compartmentalize between the economic opportunities and also political implications.
Okay.
Only because North Korea still does that, that should not mean the end of our economic opportunity pursued in that region. So I think that there has to be some kind of different two-track approach. On one hand, we can always think about the collaboration involving Russia, North Korea, and South Korea. But at the same time, even without the North Korea, we can always think about different opportunities with Russia. But on top of that, I think that the relationship with Russia always adds to the challenges because now we are between the two superpowers, China and US. But if you're thinking about Russia, either they can play a kind of a mediation role, but in the worst scenario, we're trapped in three different superpowers.
Right.
So I think that the diplomatic prowess, diplomatic expertise that we can kind of play out, probably that will be a very much of a key, because we don't want to be in between the rock and a hard place all the time. So how we make our presence known and how we can play as a middle power country, that has always been a challenge, continues to be, and with added complications.
And that will be the key. All right. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Despite strong export gains, Korea's economic recovery remains on shaky ground as private spending has failed to take off. That was the view shared by the Korea Development Institute in its monthly report. It said concerns on the production side appear to have eased after industrial output rose 0.5% a month in July, thanks to growth in mining and manufacturing. The country's manufacturing capacity utilization ratio also returned to positive territory after a 3-month decline. While retail sales did show a 1.1% growth from June, the think tank said the uptick was low when considering the base effect and that consumer sentiment had in fact retreated in July. Time now for a coverage of Korea's financial markets. For that, we have our markets contributor Jemmy Kim on the line. Hi, Jemmy.
Hi.
All right, so how did the benchmark Kospi perform on this Wednesday?
All right, there was some uncertainty in the markets today, and that's, of course, due to the series of provocations from North Korea that is now prompting the Seoul government to take stronger action. The main Kospi index closed nearly flat, edging down 0.29% to 2319.82 points. This was as foreigners became net sellers, while institutional and retail investors were buyers. And the tech-heavy Kospi stock ended 0.59% higher at 652.59 points.
Could you give us a more detailed look at how the market performed by each sector?
Sure. On the whole, steel, construction, telecommunication, and securities were down. However, IT, precision medical, and medicine were up. In telecommunications, LGU+, SK Telecom, and KT all ended lower on concerns of stronger government regulations, including lower communication fees. For the market heavyweights, it was more or less a mixed bag. POSCO fell 2.19%, while Hyundai Motor and Korea Electric Power Corporation shed 1.45% and 1.3% each. Samsung Electronics, the number one market cap, on the other hand, closed 0.5 point higher.
Then what major market events do we have lined up that could affect sentiments for the remainder of this week?
Well, on September 7, Japan will be announcing its second quarter GDP figures, and market estimates say that the growth figure is expected to fall slightly short of expectations. Japan is the world's third largest economy, so the figures will have some impact on the markets. And back home here in Korea, President Moon Jae-in is meeting with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, and the talks may yield clues on how North Korea will be dealt with. The focus will be on how the global community, including the U.S., Russia, China, Japan, and South Korea, will try to alleviate fears on the Korean peninsula. This has been Jemmy Kim for Business Daily.
Amid geopolitical tensions on the Korean peninsula, the price of gold has reached its highest level in 2017. According to the Korea Exchange, the price of gold finished at $1,337 per ounce on Monday, more than 16% higher compared to the end of last year. The weakening dollar has also contributed to rising gold prices. With gold on the upswing, funds linked to the commodity are also yielding higher returns. According to financial research firm FN Guide, gold-related financial products had the best rate of return of any investment vehicle in August at 4.77%. Funds related to raw materials and healthcare followed, both raking in profits in the 3% range. The Fair Trade Commission is committed to further reforms to level the playing field in the distribution industry, particularly for small and mid-sized firms. That was the message from FTC Chairman Kim Sang-jo to the leaders of 6 business groups, including the Korea Chain Store Association, the Korea Online Shopping Association, and the Korea TV Home Shopping Association. In a meeting earlier today, Kim said the corporate watchdog is looking at further reform measures to bring more fairness to the industry. The distribution market is currently dominated by big brands like Lotte and Shinsegae, which have been accused of engaging in unfair business practices. The FTC last month had introduced a plan to raise the penalty on such practices and improve transparency on sales commission rates. The property market was a rare bright spot in Korea's slowing economy last year, with construction investment up nearly 11% on year. But with apartment prices skyrocketing, the Moon Jae-in government introduced new housing market regulations last month to crack down on speculation. Our Lee Joo-young has more on how the market has changed since then.
This is a model house in Gangnam, the first apartment complex being offered for sale since an unprecedented set of real estate measures were announced by the government in early August. It's set to be sold for about $37,000 per 3.3 square meters, but this is a drop from what could have been roughly $40,600 for the same unit of space.
The geographical location is great, and the lower price is good for us potential home buyers.
The latest round of measures aimed at curbing speculation underlined the Moon administration's determination to apply the brakes on the property market. Speculative investments had been blamed for driving up home prices amid rising concerns over snowballing household debt. The regulations include tighter mortgage rules and a hike in capital gains taxes on owners of multiple homes.
Considering the new government policy and market situation, we decided to negotiate with the union for a reasonable price.
Data from Korea Appraisal Board shows the new rules have had a measurable effect, with home prices falling in 4 consecutive weeks after a 3.3% surge in the week before the measures came into effect. Eager to further cool down the housing market, the government announced yet another new set of rules early this week, designating even more districts as speculation zones. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Eggs tainted with insecticides have now been discovered in 40 countries, including Korea. On Tuesday, a European Union official in charge of food safety said only 4 countries in the EU, Lithuania, Portugal, Cyprus, and Croatia, have not been affected. Millions of eggs across Europe contaminated with pesticides have now been destroyed. Dutch and Belgian authorities traced the source to a supplier of cleaning products in the Netherlands, leading to the arrest of 2 company officials last month. Now, we're all familiar with the concept of recycling, but upcycling, maybe not so much. Upcycling occurs when waste items are not just reused, but reborn into something completely new. The city of Seoul has opened a new upcycling plaza to help the public become more aware of this new concept. Our Lee Jung-hyun has the story.
Korea's largest-scale upcycling center opened its doors to the public on Tuesday. Here, bicycle parts are transformed into ornate lamps, plastic bottles become toy blocks for kids, and thrown-away pieces of wood are reborn as candle holders.
Upcycling is a combination of upgrade and recycling. In practice, it involves converting waste materials and throwaway items like these into new products that are more useful and practical.
Aiming to boost the green industries, the Seoul Upcycling Plaza consists of workspaces for upcycling startups and artists. But it's not just a platform for selling finished products. It's also a place for many upcycling-focused companies to store and distribute raw materials for upcycling. Some items are also shipped off to developing countries for reuse or sold to factories that manufacture new clothing.
We hope that ultimately it will go beyond producing upcycling products and become an education center where people can learn about upcycling and ways to incorporate it into their daily lifestyles.
Following just behind Germany, Korea has the second highest rate of recycling in the OECD, a huge leap forward given waste management was a major problem for Korea only 20 years ago.
I like upcycling because it's a very practical thing, it's a material-based thing, it is something we can all relate to and something we can all engage with. But I thought coming here to support this venture, this initiative, was very important. Also because I think we can be inspired by that in Denmark.
Upcycling helps reduce energy use, air and water pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions that occur when creating new items, which is one of the reasons why Korea is looking toward this new trend. Starting with the establishment of this upcycling center, Korea aims to go beyond recycling waste, taking a step further to become a leading upcycling nation. Lee Jung-yeon, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.